The porcelain explodes against my skull before I even register the swing. There's no shatter in my ears, only the violent burst of pain spreading from my temple through my teeth while something warm slides down my face gravy. Punch or blood, I can't tell. The room falls silent, except for the soft patter of broken ceramic scattering across the hardwood like tiny white stones. Black Talia Brooks stands 3 feet away. Her arms still lifted from the strike, her chest rising fast, her face blazing red with fury. How dare you say no to my mother? You stupid woman! Her voice hits the walls of Black Quentin Holt's dining room. The same room I helped him paint last summer when we moved in furniture together, and I ruined my good church shoes with blue paint splatters. My hand touches my temple. My fingers come back red. Across the table, Talia's mother, Black Miss Benita Rivers, stares with fake shock. Her hands pressed to her mouth, though she's the one who created this chaos months ago by demanding my apartment like I owed her something. In the doorway, my son stands frozen. The boy I raised alone after his father abandoned us, the young man I worked 20 years of double shifts to support. Talia's brother, Black Wesley Brooks, the elder law attorney, inches toward the door, ready to run after helping set up this ambush with documents meant to strip me of everything I built. Blood drips onto my good blue dress. The Dillard's clearance dress I wore because Quentin told me tonight was a celebration of his promotion. A family dinner, a joyful moment. But this isn't a celebration. It's a setup. Sign the apartment over to me, Talia demands, her voice shaking with rage, not fear. Or pay my mama $1,500 a month for rent. You letting strangers live in that place while she's suffering. I look at all of them, Talia lowering her arm. Miss Benita pretending innocence, Wesley calculating his retreat, and Quentin standing useless, silent, choosing nothing. And then I smile. It stretches slowly, then wider still until Talia's eyes flicker with the first hint of fear. You have no idea what you just did. Talia's red face drains to pale. What? She whispers. Miss Benita drops her hands. Karen, what are you talking about? Wesley freezes mid-step, his lawyer instincts sensing danger. Quentin finally speaks, voice tight. Mama. I touch my blood-slicked temple again, letting the red shine on my fingers for all of them to see. I lift my head without hesitation, without pause. 2 weeks ago, I made some phone calls. The room shifts instantly. Fear ripples through each of them. I watch their expressions change as the blood drips from my chin to the floor. Beside a shard of the shattered plate, the plate with little painted roses I bought them 2 Christmases ago. Now broken just like the illusion of family they tried to trap me with, and I let them feel exactly what they were so sure. I'd never feel control. 3 months earlier, I stood in Black Quentin Holt's kitchen after Sunday dinner, loading dishes into the sink with water so hot it turned my fingers pink. Soap suds covered my hands up to my elbows while the smell of roasted chicken and collard greens still hung in the air. I was scrubbing a casserole dish when I felt someone step far too close behind me. Black Talia Brooks appeared at my side, close enough for me to smell her perfume, something expensive. Sharp, floral, the kind of scent Quentin probably paid for. Karen, we need to talk about where you're living, she said, voice flat, commanding. Not concerned. My living situation is fine, I replied, still scrubbing. Not looking at her, before I could finish rinsing the dish, Black Miss Benita Rivers appeared on my other side, flanking me like a security detail. She clasped her hands together with a sugary, practiced smile. Baby, you're 71. That big house is too much for one person. You shouldn't be worrying yourself with all that space and upkeep. I set the casserole dish in the drying rack, picked up a serving spoon, and kept working. I like my house. Talia crossed her arms. My mama's landlord is selling her place. She needs somewhere to stay. Real soon. I knew Miss Benita's situation well. She'd been moving from relative to relative for over a decade, always wearing out her welcome, always leaving drama behind. Her last cousin needed a lawyer just to remove her after 8 months. That's unfortunate, I said, wiping my hands on a towel. Talia leaned in. She could take your guest room. I shook my head. No, that room isn't available. Or, Talia continued without hesitation, you got that apartment in Queens sitting there with strangers living in it. They can move out. My hands froze. The apartment. My security. My life's work. I bought that place in 1987 for $62,000 with money I saved cutting lunches, walking to work, and taking every double shift offered. Now it was worth nearly $400,000 and rented to a young black couple with a newborn daughter. They paid on time, took care of the place, even sent me photos of the nursery they painted. The apartment is occupied, I said. Firm and final. Miss Benita stepped forward. Voice syrup sweet. Leases can be broken for family, baby. You know that. Sometimes you gotta make sacrifices. I turned off the faucet, dried my hands, and faced them both evenly. No. The word was small, but it filled the kitchen like thunder. Talia kept a smile on her face, but her eyes hardened instantly. No, the apartment is not available. But my mama, no. Miss Benita gasped like I had slapped her. Karen, that's real unkind. After everything we've tried to do to make this family work? Talia's jaw twitched. A muscle jumped in her cheek. Something cold flickered behind her eyes, anger. She wasn't bothering to hide anymore. She turned sharply and walked out of the kitchen, heels striking the floor with fast, angry clicks. Miss Benita followed, giving me a long look meant to make me feel guilty. I didn't. I picked up the next plate, though my hands trembled with a mixture of anger and dread. 5 minutes later, Quentin walked into the kitchen with Talia right behind him, her hand resting on his shoulder, her eyes red like she'd been crying for an audience. Mama, Quentin said softly. Talia's really hurt by what you said. I looked at my daughter-in-law. Her bottom lip trembled, her eyes glistened. She was a performer. And she was good at it. I didn't say anything cruel. I said. You told me no, Talia whispered, letting a tear slide down her cheek. You told me no when I asked you to help my family. And just like that, I knew. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a campaign. And that one small no was the match that lit the fuse. Those next weeks turned every family gathering into a battlefield I never agreed to enter. Sunday dinners became quiet torture sessions where Black Talia Brooks sighed dramatically at the table and said things like, some people got everything while others can't even find a roof. Her voice loud enough for everyone to hear, but her eyes locked directly on me. Black Miss Benita Rivers sat beside her, nodding with a face full of practiced sorrow. Hands folded like a church lady playing innocent while stirring the pot. At Thanksgiving, Benita mentioned at least 6 times how impossible it was to find affordable senior housing in this day and age, each time looking at Quentin, then back at me, hoping guilt would land where manipulation hadn't. At Christmas, Talia handed me a book wrapped in shiny red paper. I opened it and found a hardback titled Downsizing and Simplifying Your Life After 70. She smiled sweetly. I figured it might inspire you, Mama Karen, you know. Since managing big spaces is so much work now. Black Quentin Holt forced a chuckle, one he didn't mean. His eyes never met mine. The boy who used to look up at me with pure trust and pride now avoided my gaze like it burned. At first he looked down only during Talia's comments, but soon it spread. He stopped looking me in the eye when saying hello. Stopped looking at me when saying goodbye. Stopped looking at me when I asked simple questions. I watched my son, the child I raised through exhaustion and sacrifice, disappear in front of me piece by piece. Every gathering became a rehearsal of the same script. Talia played the wounded daughter-in-law. Benita played the suffering elder. Wesley stayed in the background, observing quietly, waiting for the right moment to bring in legal options. And Quentin stood beside them, letting their narrative drown out the 20 years of love I had given him. One Sunday, I brought sweet potato pie, Quentin's childhood favorite. He barely touched it. Talia made a loud comment about how some people hide their blessings instead of sharing them. Quentin didn't disagree. He didn't defend me. He didn't even blink. The weight of their expectations pressed against me every week. Not to love, not to respect, not to support. But to give. To surrender. To hand over what I had earned. To abandon my boundaries in the name of family. I saw it clearer each time. They didn't want my well-being, they wanted my assets, and the more I held firm, the more Quentin drifted away. By the 7th week, I could barely recognize him. He answered my questions with short, practiced lines. He repeated Talia's concerns like they were his own. He flinched whenever I disagreed with her. The boy I raised alone had become a shadow hovering behind his wife's shoulder. And through it all, their eyes kept coming back to one thing. My apartment. My independence. My future. This was no misunderstanding. It was a coordinated effort. A slow, calculated erosion of my voice. And every time I said no, every time I stood my ground, they tightened their circles, sharpened their tones, and pushed harder. The pressure was relentless. The guilt was constant. The manipulation was practiced and polished. And I realized the truth that hurt more than anything else. My family wasn't trying to help me. They were trying to own me. 7 weeks after that first no, I heard tires crunch on my driveway at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday. When I opened the door, Black Talia Brooks stood there holding a manila folder, dressed like she was heading to a board meeting instead of barging into my home without warning. "I was worried about you," she said, brushing past me before I could reply. "I couldn't sleep last night thinking about all the stress you must be under." She walked straight to my living room, sat on my couch like she owned it, crossed her legs, and opened the folder. Papers spilled onto my coffee table printouts, articles, highlighted paragraphs, all arranged neatly like she'd spent all night preparing. "Did you know senior citizens are the #1 target for financial scams?" she said, laying the first article down. Another sheet followed. "And here, elderly folks who can't manage their properties anymore and end up in legal trouble." Another article. Another headline, another attempt to plant fear where she wanted control. "I manage my property just fine," I said, "but at your age, stress is dangerous. Karen, it can cause heart issues, memory issues, even full cognitive decline." She slid another paper across the table about dementia. "What if something happens? What if your tenants sue you? What if there's a fire? What if you forget to pay insurance? What if—" "I have insurance," I said, standing my ground. She didn't miss a beat. "And what if you forget a payment? What if a small mistake ruins everything you've built?" Then she pulled out a neatly typed legal document and slid it across the table like a dealer sliding a card. "I had a lawyer friend. Draw something up. Simple. Just sign the apartment over to Quentin. He'll manage everything for you. Take the burden off your shoulders." I picked it up. One look was enough. The property transfer wasn't made out to Quentin. It was made out to Talia Rutherford Brooks. Not my son. Her. My hands began to shake, not from confusion, not from fear, but from a fury so sharp it steadied my voice. "Get out of my house." Talia blinked like she couldn't believe someone dared to tell her no. "What?" "Get out of my house." Her expression cracked. The mask slipped. For 1 second I saw her real face, calculating, irritated, entitled. Then it vanished, replaced by quivering lips and watery eyes. "I'm trying to help you." "And you're being cruel," she whispered, voice breaking in perfect performance. "Wait until Quentin hears how you spoke to me." She gathered her folder slowly, making sure I was watching her injured expression. She walked to the door, paused, and glanced over her shoulder with a coldness she didn't bother hiding now. "You're going to need help eventually. Karen, it'd be smarter to accept it now while you still have a choice." She closed the door behind her, and the sound echoed through my home like the strike of a gavel. I stood there holding the document with her name typed in bold. Black letters. Not Quentin. Her. It was the moment the truth settled. Deep in my chest, they didn't want my safety, they wanted my assets, and they were willing to use fear, guilt, and lies to get them. 2 days after Talia stormed out of my house, Black Quentin Holt called and asked if he could come over. His voice sounded tired, worn, strained in a way that told me he wasn't calling for peace. He was calling to deliver something rehearsed. He arrived at 6. He sat across from me at my kitchen table, the same table where I taught him to tie his shoes, where I helped him with homework, where we ate dinner after every long shift I worked alone to raise him. Now he sat there like a visitor, not my child. "Mama," he said, rubbing his face, "Talia told me what happened." I kept my eyes on him. "What did she tell you?" "That she came to help you. That she brought information about the apartment. That she tried to offer solutions for your stress and that you yelled at her." "I didn't yell," I said. "I told her to leave." "She was crying," he said softly. "Really crying." I looked at him, really looked, and realized he believed every word she fed him. Talia had wrapped him tight around her finger, and he couldn't see the strings. Did she show you the document she brought? I asked. What document? The property transfer with her name on it. Not yours. Quentin blinked, confused. She said that was just a draft. A template. That your name would go there. My heart broke a little. Not because he believed her, but because he didn't believe me. Quentin, I said quietly, I'm not signing my property over to anyone. His jaw tightened. His voice dropped into something scolding, almost paternal. Mama, I think you should consider Talia's offer. Managing a rental property is complicated. What if something goes wrong? I've been managing it for 8 years, I replied. He nodded slowly. Yes, but you're not getting any younger. The words collided with my chest like an unexpected blow. What if you start forgetting things? He continued. What if... Are you saying I'm not competent? I asked. He looked down. I didn't say that. You just did. His phone buzzed, once, then again. Talia's name glowed on the screen. He cleared his throat. There's something else. Of course there was. Even if you don't transfer the apartment, he said. Mama Benita still needs help. She's family. And family helps each other. That's what you taught me. I agree, I said evenly. So you and Talia should help her. Quentin blinked, shocked. Our house is too small. But you have that apartment sitting there, he insisted. If you won't let Mama Benita live there, at least help with her rent. $1,500 a month isn't too much to ask. I stared at him so long the room seemed to still. You want me to pay $1,500 a month, I said slowly, to support your wife's mother? I want you to help family, he repeated. Silence wrapped around the table like a heavy blanket. I raised you alone, I said, voice low but steady. Worked doubles until my feet bled. Paid for your entire college education. Bought you a car for graduation. Never asked you for a dime. And now you're asking me, no, telling me to pay your wife's mother's rent? His phone buzzed again. Talia. Always Talia. It's different, he muttered. How you did those things for me. That's different. How? Because you're my mother. The words sliced clean through me. Get out, I whispered. Mama, get out. My house. He stood slowly, grabbed his keys, paused at the door like he expected me to call him back. But I didn't. He turned, his face twisted with anger and something like disbelief. You're being selfish, he said. Talia is right about you. The door closed behind him. I sat alone at the kitchen table long after the sun disappeared, sitting in the dark, realizing the truth. I hadn't just lost a fight. I was losing my son. 2 weeks passed without a single call or text from Black. Quentin Holt. The silence between us settled like dust on old furniture, thick, heavy, untouched. Then on a Friday night, my phone buzzed. A text from him lit up the screen. Family party Sunday at 5 to celebrate my promotion. Please come. Key stared at the message. A party. A celebration. After everything. I almost deleted it. Almost stayed home. But he was still my son. Even if he was slipping through my fingers 1 inch at a time. So Sunday afternoon, I put on my good blue Dillard's dress again and made his favorite casserole. The one with the crunchy breadcrumb topping he loved since he was 8. I drove to the house I helped him buy by co-signing the loan. Walking up to the porch with hope hanging heavy on my heart. Should have known something was wrong the second I stepped inside. Only 4 people were there. Quentin. His wife, Black Talia Brooks. Her mother, Black Miss Benita Rivers. And her brother, Black attorney Wesley Brooks. No cousins. No co-workers. No music. No decorations. Just 5 plates already set on the table and 5 glasses of wine already poured like they knew exactly when I'd walk through the door. Karen, Miss Benita said, air kissing both my cheeks. So glad you could make it. Wesley shook my hand with the cool professionalism of a man who didn't come for celebration. Nice to finally meet you. I've heard a lot about you. I bet he had. Talia took the casserole dish from me with a tight smile. How thoughtful. We'll have this with dinner. The table was arranged perfectly, almost too perfectly. Silverware lined up like soldiers. Plates already positioned. Wine poured evenly to the same line in every glass. This wasn't a family dinner. This was a meeting. A setup disguised as supper. We made small talk over pot roast that tasted dry and forced. They discussed Quentin's promotion, Talia's PTA board position, and the weather like a script they practiced. No joy, no warmth. Just tension stretched thin, then between the main course and dessert. Wesley cleared his throat. Karen, he began, sliding into a tone that made my stomach tighten. I understand there's been some family tension lately. I set my fork down carefully. Oh? Quentin and Talia mentioned some disagreements regarding property management, family support, and future planning. He smiled. It wasn't warm. It was polished, a lawyer's smile. I wanted to offer some professional perspective. At a certain age, making complicated decisions becomes more difficult. There are legal mechanisms that can help ensure everything is handled properly. He reached down, lifted his leather briefcase, and placed 2 documents on the table. This is a power of attorney, he said, tapping the first page. It would give Quentin authority to manage your finances and properties. He slid the second page forward. And this is a property transfer for the Queen's apartment, placing the deed in Quentin's name for your protection. I didn't touch the documents. Not a single finger moved. For my protection, I repeated. Yes, Wesley said, nodding. Estate planning is crucial at your age. Miss Benita leaned in. And if something were to happen, wouldn't you want to know Quentin could take care of everything? I glanced around the table at Wesley's expensive pen, at Talia's face trying to show concern instead of greed, at Quentin avoiding my eyes like he had been trained to. No, I said. Talia's expression flickered like a light bulb about to blow. Karen, you're not understanding. I understand perfectly. I said, you want me to sign over my property and give up control of my finances? The answer is no. Quentin finally spoke for the first time since we sat down, his voice tight and defensive. Mama, if you just listen. I have listened for 3 months. I said, I've listened to manipulation disguised as concern, to demands disguised as family love, to you letting your wife speak for you while you stand there silent. I pushed my chair back. I'm done listening. Talia's chair scraped hard against the floor as she shot up. How dare you? She screamed, her voice slicing through the room. How dare you say no to my mother? She needs help. She needs a place to live. And you're sitting on that property collecting rent while she suffers. You selfish, cruel, stubborn woman. Quentin opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Wesley looked at his glass. Benita made a small gasp. I picked up my purse and turned toward the door. And that's the moment everything detonated. I didn't see Talia's hand move. Didn't see her grab her plate. Didn't see her arm raise. But I felt the impact when porcelain met skull. And the world shifted forever. The plate didn't just break. Against my head. It detonated. 1 second I was walking toward the door, my purse in hand, ready to leave this staged ambush behind. The next second, an explosion of pain ripped through my skull as porcelain shattered against bone with a force that made the room tilt. Shards flew everywhere, across the table, under chairs, skittering across the hardwood and disappearing beneath cabinets. A fragment dropped into Black Benita River's wine glass with a tiny splash. Another piece sliding across the floor until it vanished under the refrigerator. The sound came a heartbeat after the pain, a violent crack that made Black Attorney Wesley Brooks drop his fork and jump like a witness to gunfire. Then the room fell into a silence so heavy it could suffocate. My hand went to my head instantly, instinctively. Warmth coated my fingers. When I pulled them away, they were slicked red, not gravy. Not punch. Blood. My blood, running down the side of my face in a hot, steady stream. Black Talia Brooks still stood in the same spot, her arm frozen in midair, her face blazing red, her chest rising like she had sprinted across a field. Her eyes were wild-wide, bright, almost shocked by the violence she herself unleashed. Benita's hands flew to her mouth, but she didn't move toward me, didn't offer help. She stood rooted in place, staring like she'd witnessed something she hoped wouldn't backfire. Quentin took a step toward me. Mama, I lifted my hand, palm out, firm and steady. Don't touch me. He stopped mid-step. His hand hung uselessly between us. Wesley shot to his feet too fast, his chair tipping backward and crashing to the floor, making Benita gasp. He looked from the blood dripping down my face to the shards scattered across the floor, and knew instantly this wasn't something he could talk away or cover with legal jargon. Blood traced the curve of my cheekbone, dripped from my jawline, and soaked into the collar of my blue Dillard's dress. The stain spread slowly, dark and warm, crawling across the fabric like a tide dot. My head throbbed in waves, pain pulsing in time with my heartbeat, but I didn't reach for the wound again. I kept my bloody hand lifted where everyone could see it. Evidence, proof, a witness etched in red dot, and then, despite the pain, despite the shock, something inside me crystallized. I smiled. It started small, a twitch at the corner of my mouth. Then it grew, stretched, sharpened, became something wide, calm, and chilling. A smile that showed I wasn't broken. A smile that made the room shift. Talia's arm slowly dropped. Her eyes flickered. The rage drained out of her face, replaced by something she had never expected to feel. Fear. "You have no idea what you just did," I said, my voice steady, cold, and clear. The words floated through the quiet room like smoke, wrapping themselves around everyone's throat. Talia swallowed hard. "What?" she whispered. Benita's voice cracked. "Karen, what are you saying?" Wesley looked sick. Quentin looked lost. Talia looked terrified. I slid my hand into my purse, ignoring the blood dripping down my wrist, and pulled out my phone. The screen lit up, and I watched comprehension hit Wesley first. His attorney instincts were faster than his morals. His eyes widened, calculating consequences he had never imagined. 2 weeks ago, I said slowly, lifting the phone where they could all see it. I made some phone calls. Quentin stepped toward me again. "Mama, what calls?" But it didn't matter, because the balance of power had already shifted. The moment the plate shattered, the entire game reset. They thought they had cornered me. Instead, they handed me the key to everything, and I was about to use it. The room stayed frozen as I held the phone in my hand, blood dripping down my wrist onto the hardwood floor. Black Wesley Brooks stared at me like he already knew what was coming, his lawyer instincts calculating worst-case scenarios faster than anyone else could blink. Black Talia Brooks stood rigid, chest heaving, fear spreading through her expression inch by inch. 2 weeks ago, I repeated, letting the silence thicken around every word. "I made some calls." Wesley cleared his throat. "What calls?" His voice was soft, careful, the voice of a man sensing a cliff edge under his feet. I ignored him. "I let their imaginations run wild. Let the consequences build. The first call," I said, looking directly at Wesley, "was to your law firm." His face drained instantly. "I filed an ethics complaint," I continued, "for coercion. For using a family gathering to push legal documents onto someone you claimed was an elder client. For conflict of interest. For participating in financial manipulation." Wesley opened his mouth, but nothing came out. His hands, usually so steady, trembled at his sides. "The second call," I said calmly, "was to my attorney. Black attorney Rosemary Chen. She specializes in elder financial abuse and family exploitation." I touched the blood on my temple again, showing them the fresh red on my fingers. "She's going to enjoy this." Talia stepped back without meaning to, her heel crunching on a shard of broken plate. The sound made her flinch. "You can't," she whispered. "But I can," I said. Benita gripped the edge of the table. "Karen, what did you do?" I didn't sit. I didn't look away. I didn't soften. "The third call," I said, "was to my financial advisor." The room somehow grew even quieter. Even Quentin stopped breathing. I liquidated everything. Talia's mouth fell open. "What does that mean?" "It means," I said slowly, "the apartment you wanted so badly. The one you and your mother were fighting over like vultures circling meat. I sold it." "To who?" Quentin whispered. "To my tenants," I said. "That young black couple with the baby. The family that paid rent on time. The ones who treated the place with love. I sold it to them for below market value so their daughter would have a home." Talia actually staggered backward. No, you didn't." "Oh, I did," I said. "The sale closed yesterday." Her hands opened and closed in disbelief. Her hands opened and closed in disbelief. Like she was trying to grab something slipping through her fingers. "And my house," I continued. "The one you tried to force me to hand over. The one you wanted Benita to move into. The one you thought you could bully out of me." I let the words sink in before I delivered the blow. I transferred it to an irrevocable trust. Benita's breath caught. "Rosemary," I said, "is the trustee. I can live in it until I die. After that, the house goes to charity." Talia choked on a sound that wasn't quite a word. You can't touch it, I said. Not ever. Benita made a noise like an injured animal, clutching her chest as if the very idea of losing access to my property physically hurt her. Quentin stared at me with disbelief and confusion etched across his face. Mama, why would you do that? My bank accounts, I said, without looking at him. My retirement, my savings. Everything is now inside a living trust. I left a small stipend for you, Quentin. But only if you meet certain conditions. His voice cracked. What conditions? Regular visits, I said. A real relationship. Witnesses. Proof. Not performative. Not because Talia told you to. Genuine. Earned. Quentin swallowed hard. Mama, you didn't have to do all that. I looked him in the eyes for the first time since he walked out of my house weeks earlier. You had every chance to protect me, I said, but instead you believed lies. You defended people who were using you. And when your wife insulted me, manipulated me, and controlled every breath in that house, you sided with her. The silence was thick enough to taste. Wesley was the first to move. He grabbed his briefcase with shaking hands, shoved the unsigned documents inside, and backed toward the door. I need to leave, he muttered. Running? I asked softly. Smart. The ethics board already has everything. I gestured to the blood dripping down my dress. This won't help your case. He was gone before I finished the sentence, the door slamming behind him. Benita pointed at me with trembling hands. You ruined everything. No, I said. Your daughter ruined everything. Talia shook her head, voice cracking. You took everything from us. There was nothing for you to take, I said. That's the point. She took another step back. Her fear tasted like victory. Not revenge, relief. Freedom. And that, I said quietly, is what you never understood. I held the phone in my hand, blood dripping down my wrist, while Black Talia Brooks stood frozen in front of me, her face pale and streaked with panic. Black Benita Rivers wrung her hands, babbling excuses. Black Quentin Holt stared at me like he didn't recognize his own mother. I lifted the phone and dialed. No! Talia lunged toward me. Quentin caught her arm mid-run. Stop. Don't make it worse. Worse! She screamed at him. How can it be worse? She took everything. But I pressed the final digit. The operator answered, calm and steady. 911, what's your emergency? My voice didn't shake. I need to report an assault. My daughter-in-law hit me with a plate. I'm bleeding from a head wound. Talia collapsed into a chair, sobbing, real tears this time. Not the theatrics she'd used to manipulate Quentin for months. Benita rushed forward. Karen, baby. This is a misunderstanding. I was walking away, I said, maintaining eye contact. She hit me from behind. That is not a misunderstanding. The operator asked for the address. I gave it. Police and paramedics. 8 minutes out. I stayed on the line. I stayed sitting. I stayed bleeding. Quentin slowly approached, voice trembling. Mama, maybe we can fix this. Talk it out. Fix what? I asked. Pretend you didn't assault me? Pretend you didn't stand there and call me selfish? Pretend you didn't watch me bleed and still question whether this is real? He flinched like I had slapped him. Sirens grew louder in the distance. Suddenly screamed, Quentin, do something! He looked at her, at me, then at the floor, the place he'd been staring for months. Avoiding truth, avoiding loyalty, avoiding me. Red and blue lights flashed through the windows. Heavy footsteps hit the porch. The doorbell rang. No one moved. It rang again. You should answer that, I said. Quentin walked to the door like he was marching toward judgment. He opened it, and 2 officers stepped inside. One older black officer with gray at the temples, one younger. The older officer went straight to me. Ma'am, are you Karen Holt? Yes. He nodded at the blood on my dress. Paramedics are right behind us. Can you tell me what happened? I pointed at Talia without hesitation. She hit me with a plate. The younger officer looked at the shattered ceramics scattered across the floor, the blood running down my face, and then at Talia. Ma'am, is that true? Talia only cried harder. The paramedics rushed to me. Ma'am, do you feel dizzy, nauseated? My head hurts, I said. Probably needs stitches. They checked my pupils, cleaned the wound gently, wrapped temporary bandaging. Possible concussion. Definitely stitches. Meanwhile, The older officer turned to Talia. Ma'am, please stand up. She looked up, eyes an ocean of fear. Why? You're under arrest for assault. Benita screamed. Quentin grabbed the officer's arm. This is a mistake. My mother is lying. She's twisting everything. The younger officer stepped between them. Sir, step back. Now, she's making this up, Quentin yelled. If you interfere again, the officer said sharply, you will be arrested for obstruction. Is that what you want? Quentin's hand dropped instantly. The older officer took Talia's wrists, guided them behind her gently but firmly, and cuffed her. You have the right to remain silent. The Miranda rights echoed around the dining room like a verdict. Benita sobbed into her hands. Quentin whispered Talia's name like a broken prayer. They led her out the door. She looked back at me. Once, and the fear in her eyes said everything she'd never admitted out loud. The paramedics helped me stand. I'm going with her, Quentin said. No, I said. You're not. Mama, you made your choice, Quentin. When she hit me and you called it an accident. When you believed her lies. When you chose silence over truth. When you grabbed that officer's arm and called me a liar. He froze, unable to speak. I'm making my choice too, I said. They loaded me into the ambulance. I watched Quentin from the small back window as the doors closed, his face. Small, confused, devastated. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel weak. I felt free. The hospital was bright, cold, and smelled like antiseptic. They stitched my head, 6 stitches, and put me under concussion observation. Nurses checked on me. Doctors asked questions. The world moved normally while my life split open. That night, my attorney, Black Rosemary Chen, called. I saw the police report, she said. Do you want to press charges? Yes. Good. I'm filing for a restraining order against Talia and Benita. Maybe Wesley too. What about Quentin? A pause. Do you want one against your son? I closed my eyes. No, I whispered. But I don't want to see him. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Then that's what we do, she said. 3 days in the hospital. Lights in my eyes. Vitals every few hours. A bed that wasn't mine. A life I didn't recognize. On the 4th day, they released me. Rosmar, i.e. drove me home. You did the right thing, she said. I nodded because my voice felt like glass. Inside my house, the silence was heavy but clean. Empty but safe. Quentin texted that night. Mom. Please call me. Please, I'm sorry. Please. I turned off my phone. Not of cruelty. Out of survival. 3 days in the hospital turned into 4. And by the time I walked back into my home, I felt like I was stepping into a new world, one built from the ashes of everything that shattered that night. Black attorney Rosemary Chen had already filed the restraining orders. Black Talia Brooks and Black Benita Rivers were legally required to stay 500 feet away from me. Wesley Brooks was under investigation by the state bar, and Quentin hadn't visited or called again after those first frantic messages. Weeks passed. Weeks became months. Talia pled guilty to misdemeanor assault. She got probation, anger management classes, and 100 hours of community service. It wasn't jail, but it was accountability, something she had never faced before. Wesley received a formal reprimand. It didn't take his law license, but it stained his reputation like grease on silk. Word spread, people whispered, clients hesitated. He lost more than he expected. Benita found another relative to take her in, a sister up in Ohio. I heard she'd already overstayed her welcome and brought chaos with her. But that wasn't my problem anymore. Then one afternoon, 6 weeks after the assault, my phone rang. Quentin Holt. I stared at his name long enough that the call almost went to voicemail. But even after everything, even after choosing his wife's lies over my bleeding body, he was still my son. I answered. Mama, he said, his voice rough and tired. Can I come over? My body wanted to say no. My heart didn't know. But something softer inside me said yes. He arrived an hour later, standing on my porch like a boy afraid to knock on his own mother's door. I opened it and stepped aside, but didn't smile, didn't reach for him, didn't make it easier. He sat on one end of the couch. I sat on the other. We're separated, he said quietly. Me and Talia. I said nothing. She moved back with her mother in Ohio. I'm in the house. Silence filled the room like fog. I've been going to therapy, he continued. The therapist says I was being manipulated. that Talia was using emotional control tactics, that I didn't see the signs. You should have, I said, not harshly. Honestly. He flinched. You chose her while she yelled at me. While she insulted me. While she hit me. You called it an accident. You called me selfish. You believed her every time she cried. My voice didn't shake. You chose her over me. He wiped his eyes. Mama, I know. I know, and I'm sorry. I don't know how to fix it. You can't, I said. You can't undo what you did. You can't take back calling me a liar while my blood was on the floor. Tears streamed down his face. I'm your son, he whispered. I know, I said. But that doesn't erase what happened. He swallowed hard. Can we try again? Please? I thought about the trust paperwork. The conditions dot the boundaries I'd built, not out of punishment, but out of protection. Maybe, I said. But not now. How long? I don't know, I said truthfully. Maybe never, maybe someday. Healing isn't on your timeline. I stood. You need to leave now. He stood too, shoulders heavy with regret. At the door, he paused. I love you, Mama. The words hung in the air, fragile and late. I didn't say them back. He left quietly, and I let the silence settle again. Months rolled forward like a slow river. I turned 72. My birthday passed with a grocery store cupcake and a quiet evening. I joined a book club at the local library. 7 Black women between 60 and 80 who read mysteries and laughed loudly enough for librarians to glare at us. One woman. Black Miss Philippa Lane had soft, kind eyes and gray hair in a long braid down her back. We became friends quickly. Real friends. Not the shallow kind built on obligation or guilt. One night she told me her daughter hadn't spoken to her in 3 years because she refused to give her money for a boyfriend's failed business. I'm not sorry, Philippa said. Some people only love what you can give. I nodded. I understand. I started volunteering at the library's children's story hour on Tuesdays and Saturdays. Little ones crowded around as I read them picture books. They laughed at the funny parts, gasped at the scary ones, and clapped at the endings. Children are honest in ways adults forget. They reminded me of the joy in simple things. The young black couple who bought my Queens apartment sent me a Christmas card. Their little girl stood in front of a decorated tree, smiling wide with 2 missing teeth. They wrote, "Thank you for giving us a real home." I kept the card on my refrigerator. My house, the one locked in the trust, didn't feel empty anymore. I planted flowers in the spring, tomatoes in the summer. I found peace in the dirt, in the slow rhythm of caring for something that didn't want to take from me. Rosmarie, and I had lunch every month. We didn't talk about the past. We talked about books, gardening, and whatever case she was fighting. Life moved forward quietly. My stitches came out. A thin scar traced my hairline. I touched it sometimes, not with pain. Just with memory. Quentin texted once a month, thinking of you. Hope you're well. I'm here if you need anything. I didn't respond. Not out of bitterness. Out of boundaries. Out of healing. One afternoon. The blood of healing. One afternoon. My doorbell rang. I checked the window, an old habit, and saw Philippa holding a fresh blueberry pie. I made this for us, she called. Thought we could share it with coffee. I smiled a real smile and opened the door. We sat at my kitchen table. The same table where Quentin accused me of incompetence. Where Talia slid that first legal document. Where manipulation turned into violence. But today, it was just a table with pie, coffee, and a friend who asked gently, "How are you really?" This time I didn't have to think long. "I'm okay," I said. Truly. She squeezed my hand, and sunlight spilled across the table, warm and golden, lighting up the room in a soft glow that felt like blessing. I looked around my home, the one I fought for, the one I protected, the one no one could ever take, and I realized something with absolute clarity. This peace. Safety, sunlight, friendship, freedom, this is what winning looks like, not revenge. Not punishing them, not making them feel what I felt. Winning is choosing yourself, choosing boundaries, choosing dignity, choosing life that doesn't drain you. If anybody ever tells you that protecting yourself is selfish, Remember this, sometimes saying no is the most powerful act of love you'll ever give to yourself. And I would choose it again, every single time.